Welcome to T10. Today we have our special guest, Haidwa All India Secretary Marian Davale. Hi, comrade. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I am fine. In Hyderabad, you are going to conduct Haidwa All India Conference in this month,
Yes,
this week.
yes.
Okay. What are the agendas you are going to take in this conference?
We are very happy to hold our 14th national conference in Hyderabad because Telangana and originally United Andhra has a long legacy of struggle and very inspiring struggle. We've had very inspiring leaders from here like Comrade Mallu Swarajyam, who has been our idol, and a very simple lifestyle and inspiration to the women's movement. And so we chose Hyderabad and Telangana, and we are very happy that all our women have worked very hard to make this conference a success, which will start from the 25th of this month. 850 delegates from 26 states will be participating, and they'll be representing a membership of more than 1 crore 10 lakhs. So it's a huge task, and from the ground level, we've been having our conferences. We have around 45 to 50,000 local units all over the country. So right from the local unit conference to the area conference, taluka, district, state, and then all India. So a 1 year long process of conferences have been happening along with our struggles and campaign. And in every conference, we have discussed the issues that women are facing from the ground level to the now national level. One is extreme price rise. There is absolutely no control on any kind of prices of the essential commodities. Today, to get even basic necessities is becoming a luxury for a very large number of women. Unemployment is another major issue. There is no work for women, and women are getting pushed into unorganized sector, insecure work, and migrant labor. You see, so here there is massive exploitation. They are also victims of sexual violence in these works, and there is no protection at all. And now the government has passed the 4 labor codes. Not just passed, they have notified them. That means now they're going to implement them. And when they implement them, along with the attack on the general working class, women will be very badly affected. Because if you increase hours of work, then for a woman it's very difficult to work such long hours in factories or in working places, then come back home and again perform the domestic labor, which is not calculated into any of the economic sphere, the unpaid labor of a woman within the home. So it's going to be a very tough call for her. Then along with unemployment, now the government has literally finished off the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Act. They have started this Gramji Act they have passed. Now this Gramji Act is going to literally stop Manrega work in the rural areas.
They are telling that it is better than which is there before.
On paper, they are saying we will give 125 days of work. The old act guarantees 100 days of work. But even now, nowhere was 100 days of work available. It was on paper. So on paper, they may write 125 days or they may write 200 days of work also. The question is, where is that work going to come from? There is no allocation in the budget for the Manrega. There is no increase in allocation. Now, instead of the demand-based act, it was earlier act said that if the local women or persons, the job card holders, if they demanded work, then it was the duty of the administration to start the work.
Exactly.
Now it is not like that. Now it is supply based, demand based is removed. So that means now only if the government feels that it can supply the work can the work start. So you may go on demanding and the government will go on saying, okay, we have no work to give you. So in effect, the work will be totally stopped. And in the rural areas, you see 90% of the Manrega workers were women because that gave them an opportunity to work somewhere near their house. So it gave them, some kind of relief. But at the same, what was happening ever since the Modi government has come to power, that even the wages of the people who have worked have been kept pending for 2 years. So you have labored in the hot sun. Manrega work is not easy work.
Exactly.
And it is the poorest of the poor who goes to Manrega work. You are making them labor and then you're not giving them the wages. You're not giving them the money that they have earned. Will any tehsildar or will any collector not take his wage for 1 month, for 2 months, for 6 months? Will any MLA keep quiet if he doesn't get his allowance, whatever the money that he gets every month? If he doesn't get it for 6 months and 1 year, will he keep quiet? So they are looting these young people who have labored there. Even old women sometimes work in this hot sun. So Manrega is now nearly finished. Education policy, which is there, the new education policy,
NEP.
that NEP has literally destroyed the entire atmosphere in the educational system. One is the methods of education teaching has been changed, examination systems have been changed, the curriculum is being changed, the syllabus is being changed, teaching methods are being changed, examination methods are being changed, enrollments, admission processes are being changed. So what is, it's becoming more and more difficult. Like you have to give entrance exam for everything. Earlier it was not like that. Earlier you could pass your 12th standard, get according to your percentages, you could go to your college and get an admission. Now you have to, there is one more step in between where you have to give an entrance exam. Now entrance exams means examination fees. So, and those fees are being hiked every time. So when they are hiked, then the parents tell the girl, sometimes the examination center is very far. So for that girl to reach the examination center is also difficult. So many of the girls, they are dropping out of the higher educational stream. And our reports tell us, in most of our conferences, women spoke that the enrollment of girls in universities is decreasing now. Now why is it happening? It's so obvious. It's why it is decreasing. So on one hand, Modi gives the slogan Beti Padhao.
Exactly.
Teach your daughter. How to teach? You are cancelling scholarships. You're not giving scholarships. Lakhs of schools in this country have been closed down in the name of mergers. There is no less number of students, that the school is not viable. You see, in a country where there's so much poverty, the education has to reach the children. Here it is opposite. The children must come to the educational station, and if they cannot come, then you stay at home. And so what is happening in effect, that many children have been dropping out of the educational stream because of the mergers also. That means in the schooling education you are finding children going out, in the higher educational institutions you are finding they are going out. So in effect we are going in the reverse direction, where our social reformers, they earlier fought for the education of the depressed classes, of the untouchables, of the Dalits, of minorities, of women, of girls. Now again all these sections are only being denied education. So now again you have to come back to a struggle where it originated from hundreds of years ago. So this Modi government is trying to impose any kind of a system that denies the rights to the...
Actually, Modi is speaking about women's safety and women empowerment.
Yeah.
You told that many things are happening in ground. Actually, Aidva also fighting for women's safety from decades.
Yes.
But in 2026, as per government reports, many attacks are going on women.
Yeah.
How it will overcome?
So you see, in the National Crime Records Bureau has given out statistics that the crime rate against women have increased all over the country, and there are certain states like Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Delhi, where there are very high rates of crime. The cases under POCSO, that is sexual assault on minors, between 2022 and 2024 has increased by 90%.
90%.
Now, these are very upsetting and very troubling figures. This is the reality, what is happening in our country. Why is it happening? One is because the accused do not have any fear of any kind of punishment. And that is what is really happening. The BJP government in power, most of these cases, if you see, who are the people involved in the crimes? They are either the supporters of the ruling party or they belong to the ruling party. The MPs, the MLAs, they make statements against women. they support, they congratulate, or they felicitate criminals, and they say that, oh, these are very good people, very great people. So, in effect, violence is being celebrated by the RSS BJP. And so you see in the case of Ankita Bhandari in Uttarakhand, there one BJP leader herself, one lady said that some BJP person asked for special services from Ankita Bhandari. She refused. Her dead body was found after a few days. So we have been demanding to the police and the administration reveal the name of the BJP leader who was asking for special services. Till today they have not. Why have they not? Why are they protecting? Just because he's a BJP leader, you will protect. If he's a criminal, you will protect him. What have they done in Manipur? In Manipur, so many women have had to face sexual assault. In most of the cases, 99% of the cases, nobody has been caught as yet. Nobody has been penalized. You see in the wrestlers case, a full-fledged struggle was launched by the wrestler women, asking for justice. Even for asking justice, you have to fight for so much, and the police will beat you up for that. I mean, this has become the state of our country, where you are asking for protection against sexual harassment. The police will beat you, and the police will protect the accused. Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh, nothing has happened to him, and his son has got elected in the parliament now. Our Prime Minister went to campaign for that Prajwal Revanna, who was accused of rape and sexual assault on, God alone knows, more than 100 women. And what did he say in the public meeting of Prajwal Revanna when asking for votes? Mr. Modi said that one vote for Prajwal Revanna is a vote for me. And now he is in jail, that man. He lost the elections. So, what is the picture given to the whole country? That a rapist vote is being asked for a rapist by the Prime Minister of this country. How can women be safe? In 2022, 11 gang rapists and murderers were released from the jail. You see how the RSS speaks in two voices? On 15th August, the Prime Minister is giving a speech in Delhi by saying women should be respected in the country, women should be kept safe in the country. And that same BJP government in Gujarat, on that same day, 15th August, 75th year of independence, this was the gift given by the BJP RSS to the women in the country, that they were releasing gang rapists and mass murderers, and they were calling them Sanskari Brahmans. They were saying, oh, they were cultured people. This is their culture. Raping women, murdering 3-year-old child is their culture. That is what RSS is defined by. RSS is a murderous organization. We know how they've killed Mahatma Gandhi. We know how their other branches have killed Gauri Lankesh, how they've killed Narendra Dabholkar. So, how they've killed our CPI comrade
Govind
Pansare. So, and Kalburgi. They were the outfits of the Hindutva brigade, the Sangh Parivar. So, this is their culture. They will felicitate, somebody will kill a Muslim in the name of cow. False accusation. Young boys, 20-year-old, 25-year-old, 16-year-old, 18-year-old, young boys, they were killed. Akhlaq, he was the first lynching case. His accused have been acquitted by the court. How do you think that family thinks? Will the poor think that they can get justice in this country? If this thing what happens, whole world knows what has happened, but the accused are going scot-free. So it's happening everywhere. And here just now that Kuldeep Singh Sengar, the Delhi High Court was commuting his sentence. The women's organization made a protest, and then the Supreme Court not agreed to that order of the High Court. But Kuldeep Singh Sengar, who is a rapist and a murderer, his sentence can be commuted, but Omar Khalid does not get bail. All the human rights activists are in jail for so many years without any kind of criminal case against them, but they are not being getting bail. So this is openly human beings, Indian citizens are seeing how the functioning is happening in our country. Our constitution is being torn to shreds. You are not being allowed to live the life that you want to live. The right to choice of women is being changed. You do not have a right to choice. You cannot marry somebody whom you want to marry if he is intercaste or interreligious. This is interference in my private life. But what right does a government have to interfere in any private life of any individual citizen? But that is how they made the laws. They've changed the laws because they want to fit their program in the Manusmriti scheme.
Exactly. My question is there about Manusmriti. In your 14th Congress, there is a paper on Manuvad Manusmriti.
Yes.
What is there in that paper?
So in that, it's a commission paper, and in that paper we are elaborating on the how the ideology of Manusmriti is anti-human being, is anti-women, it's anti-backward class. It strengthens the caste system. It believes in caste exploitation. It believes that women are not equal human beings. It says that women are subordinate and only to serve, not as independent human beings. It is trying to take our country back into those dark ages where Dalits were not allowed or not given the right to education, were denied even decent human life. That's where they want to take this country. And so that is why, to explain the dangers of what it will do to women, that is why in that paper we've elaborated in that paper, and we'll be discussing it. And then we will take it down at the lower levels in our villages and in our mohallas to explain to women why this is such a dangerous ideology. And keeping that in mind, what this government is also doing to fit in their ideology, they are changing the laws. They are changing every law, you know. So like they've changed, like they made the new education policy in such a way.
It is in the, they are trying to include Manusmriti.
They are trying to include the Manusmriti. See, now this whole law about right to choice. A woman does not have the right to choice to choose her own life partner. What does that mean? They are not saying that this is Manusmriti. That is not what they are saying. They cannot say it. If they'll say it, then that means they are openly defying the Constitution of India. So without saying that, they are indirectly trying to implement it by changing the law. So 12 states have this law. And they've named it anti-conversion law, right to religious practice law, and all that. In Uttarakhand, they passed that uniform civil code. Now, in that uniform civil code also, if you'll see, there are so many anti-women all sections in it. We have challenged it in the Uttarakhand High Court, the ADWA. And we're trying to see how to get it scrapped. But they are doing these kinds of things. They are trying to introduce these sections and these laws which will destroy the secular fabric of our country. You know, now if a Hindu and a Muslim want to get married, they have to apply first to the district collector. Then the district collector will inquire. Then whether he will permit whether they should get married or not get married. How is the district collector involved? Tell me. How is he involved? It is the family of the girl and boy who are involved. It's the family of the girl and boy who will decide, isn't it? How can a district collector decide whether they should get married or not? Two young human beings have fallen in love and they want to marry. It is as simple as that. But they want to control which caste, which religion should interact. Because in their ideology of Manusmriti, they talk of, you see, Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, Dalits, like that blood should not intermix.
Ladder sister.
Purity of blood.
Purity of blood.
All these kinds of things are there in that. Now, if that they want to, then they have to control the women. If they control women, then they can control the birth of the child. So,
they have one slogan, all Hindus relatives. They, in every speech they are speaking that all Hindus are relatives. But in practice, is there happening?
You see, if they were all relatives? It's a simple thing. You see, if you want to change your religion, okay, if I am a if I am of one religion, and if I want to adopt Christianity, I can. If a Hindu wants to become a Muslim, he can. If a Muslim wants to become Hindu, she can. You see, but can you change your caste? If you're a Brahmin or if you're a Dalit, can you become a Brahmin? Can you change your caste? The caste system is so rigid. You can change your religion, but you can't change your caste. What you are born in will be the caste you will die in. That is why Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, he burnt the Manusmriti. And that is why he rejected the Hindu religion. He said, I am born a Hindu, but I will not die a Hindu. Why did he say that? It's because the rigidity of the caste system is so huge. So when they talk of relatives, relatives means what? Will a Brahmin, even now in our country, so many people don't drink water in the house of a Dalit or in a house of a Muslim. They don't. That is the reality. What are they talking about relatives? Inter-religious marriage, inter-dining, inter-eating, sitting together. So many places. Even now, if in a Dalit marriage, if a boy, it happened in Madhya Pradesh and some states, if that boy sits on a horse and goes, then the upper caste people beat him up by telling him that you have no right to sit on a horse and go because you're a Dalit. You have to be at our feet. This is how they talk, the BJP people, the RSS people. So this caste arrogance, and this caste arrogance, this religion arrogance has also led to a large number of honor killings in our country. Young couples are being murdered if they have intercaste or interreligious marriages. So this is not taking the country forward. It is taking the country back into the dark ages. And that is going to, the future of the young generation is at stake today. The young generation would definitely want a country that gives them the freedom to live their life as they would like to live it. Free of exploitation, free of fear and terror, free of discrimination. So is that the country that we are building today? No. Today the country is basically being run for Ambani and Adani. All laws, all projects, all kinds of schemes, this whole honor killings that have increased, this caste arrogance of religion. The youth want a safe environment to live in, where they have work, where they have dignity, where they have employment, and where there is peace. A volatile atmosphere, continuously living in insecurity. So that is not going to take the nation forward.
As you said, there are several challenges to women and people of country. But actually, your Aidwa is working from 4.5 decades. What achievements your organization get?
Actually, not 4.5 decades. AIDWA leaders have been participating right from the independence struggle.
Oh,
Our vice president was Captain Lakshmi Sehgal.
yes.
So we have a legacy of struggle right from independence struggle.
Oh.
But after independence, there were different organizations in the states working. But we realized that this is one country and we need to pool our resources together. And so then the All India Democratic Women's Association took birth in 1981.
Yes.
But before that, there was Andhra Mahila Sangam,
Yes.
like that way. So there was everywhere, there were organizations. Now, what we have achieved is that many of the laws that the government has made, in that many a times we forced them to have certain changes to protect the rights of women. Like, for example, in the National Food Security Act, which of course this government has dismantled, but the act still remains. So in the National Food Security Act, we talked about maternity help to women, we took up the issue of malnutrition, anemia. So the gender aspect in each law was strengthened. Like in the Manrega, in the Rozgar Guarantee Act, we put in a clause where women-friendly work should be removed. Otherwise, you ask women to carry those heavy stones. As it is, they are anemic. As it is, they are weak. How will they be able to do it? So women friendly work should be put. Then in the Forest Rights Act, it was the Kisan Sabha and the women's organization that fought and said that the plot should be registered in the name of the man and the woman, the husband and the wife. And where there is no husband, if she is a widow, then it should be in the name of the wife, in the name of the widow. So this kind of things we've got put in the law. Secondly, we got so many laws made in this country through the struggle, like 498A, that is protection against the violence within the 7 years of marriage. Especially it was in relation to the many dowry deaths that were taking place. Then this Domestic Violence Act. In our country, the violence that happened within the four walls of a home was not considered as violence. The police also used to tell the women, the courts also used to tell women, what happened if your husband hit you? I mean, as if the husband has a right to hit the woman. We are living in a patriarchal world, and so patriarchy operates at every single step in the life of a woman, right from the house to outside. She has to continuously counter it in various things. So then the whole, the Domestic Violence Act, then we had to force them to define what is domestic violence. Otherwise, nobody could be ever penalized. Then we had the Sexual Harassment at the Workplace Act, POSH Act, after the Vishakha judgment. We had the POXO Act. There was no act in our country to deal with sexual violence against children. It was the women's movement who fought, and that's why that act was made. Then after the Nirbhaya case in 2012, the Verma Commission was formed. After the Verma Commission was formed, certain laws have got strengthened. Though there is a lot of struggle to get them operated, to implement it. But still then, the laws got strengthened to some extent. Now we have a case in the Supreme Court going on to recognize marital rape as rape. In our country, marital rape is not recognized as rape. So we are fighting for that. So at every step, right from the ground level, we are finding, even now at the local bodies where women are elected, in many places now it is 50%. Large number of women get elected. Gram Panchayat, in the Panchayat, in the Zilla Parishad, in the municipal corporations. But if you see at the ground level, maybe about 20 years ago, if a Dalit woman got elected, she was very badly treated. Even now, many places, it's the husband who functions of the Sarpanch, if she's a woman.
Exactly.
It happens like that. But the women's movement as a whole raises their voice against all this, and because of that, certain women have come out from their houses, have been able to participate in the social sphere, in the economic sphere, in the political sphere. It has not come easy in our country, because in our country there is tremendous anti-women thoughts and anti-women cultural kind of traditions in all our spheres. If you see, there is hardly any equal sense in that way. So it has achieved a lot. Today you find women who are not willing to sit down quietly and tolerate injustice.
What are the major moments happened in between 13th to 14th conference?
So the major moments that we have taken up, one is we took up a big challenge on trying to understand this whole growing indebtedness of women. Especially after Corona, what has happened, because many of them have lost their job, many of them did not get their jobs again, and so they are literally without any livelihood. Now to even feed the people in the house, there is no money, there is no earnings, and so microfinance institutions have gone into villages and mohallas, and they are luring, they are capturing, you see, poor women by giving them, oh, we will give you cheap loans, you don't have to give collateral, don't worry. And the government has been helping the microfinance institutions to loot the women. There is tremendous indebtedness of women across the country. We have done a survey in 21 states of 9,000 women, and we are going to release a report in this conference. It's an eye-opener. The poorest of the poor women today have nothing, and they are being fleeced, cheated and robbed by these microfinance institutions. The government has changed its priority sector lending principles, the RBI. Now earlier, poor people, farmers used to get from the bank some loans. Now they are are not getting. We have demanded that the bank should give loans at the rate of 4% interest, but they are not giving. And instead, they are giving money at the rate of 7 to 10% to microfinance institutions. And that same money, that institution like Bandhan Bank and Indus Bank and all of that, they are giving to women ranging from 22 to 26% to 200%. Women don't know how to calculate. They have to pay every week some amount. 3,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees, 4,000 rupees. They don't know how much they have paid. They have no proof. And then these agents go to the houses of these women, abuse them, sexually harass them. They have also gone and told that send your daughter to my house in the night if you cannot pay your installment. So sexual harassment is also rampant. No, the police does not take into any account anything, no complaint, no control. We have told the RBI, we have sent memorandums to the Reserve Bank of India so many times. They are not even listening. This is the kind of country we have become. The people who are supposed to listen, it is their duty to listen. Why are they there? They just are not bothered. Anything and everything in this country is going to be done only for Ambani and Adan. Bas. That is what they want to do. How can we tolerate that? So in these 3 years, we had a national public hearing where retired Justice Madan Lokur was there, Professor Prabhat Patnaik, famous journalist Pamela Philippos was there, Advocate of the Supreme Court Kirti Singh was there. So all these people, and the Bank Employees Association leader Thomas Franco was there. That was the jury, and 20 testimonials, women from different parts of the country placed. And if you would have heard those testimonials, it would have been really heartrending. We have printed those testimonials in our document that we are going to release. So we are taking up this issue. The continuous struggle is going on. So wherever there is a struggle, there the MFI people have got scared to harass the women. So some kind of relief from harassment. But our main demand that you give in loans at the interest of 4%. What is this? 60%? 100%? 20%? You're taking from the bank. Whose money it is in the bank?
It is public.
It is public money. So public money you are giving to a microfinance institution at 7 to 10%, our money, and that money is again being given to us at the rate of 26 and 30% and looting our pockets. What kind of a economic system is this? And this is what Modi government calls empowerment. It is empowerment of the rich, not of the poor. And it is fooling the poor that, oh, we are giving you such easy loans, but you are drinking every drop of blood that is there in their body, whatever little is remaining. This is the kind of horrible situation in our country, and we cannot allow it. It is extremely, extremely inhuman, extremely inhuman. So we are fighting against that.
What are the 6 papers you are going to introduce in your conference?
So these 6 papers is, one is regarding the Manowadi changes that have taken place in the laws. One is on the whole attack of imperialism and its how it is impacting women's life all over the world. We are seeing what's happening in Gaza. We are seeing now in Venezuela how Mr. Trump is trying to control the entire world. And we've also seen our Prime Minister is the weakest Prime Minister who did not have a courage to stand up to Trump. He did not condemn the assault on Venezuela. All countries in the world condemned Trump for doing that, except our Prime Minister, who is so scared of Trump. So that is there on imperialism. Then there is one on the sports and women, because the government has recently made a sports policy, and that sports policy is not at all good for women. So on the sports policy, then smart cities and urbanization, because this whole concept of smart cities and rampant urbanization is causing a lot of distress to people living in urban areas, especially women. So it is on that. Then another paper we have on caste, gender and identity, and on that issue. And we have one more paper on this whole cyber crimes on that. So these are the different papers that we have, and we are going to discuss that and take up those issues further.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here. And I do hope that you will help further in covering our conference and taking the message of equality to the entire nation.
Sure, Mariam. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is the special interview. Please watch and share. T10 will going to give live updates of IDWA All India Conference. So please watch and share. Thank you very much.